Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 894. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
I'm George Conger. Today is December 13th, 2024.
All right, welcome to another episode of Anglican Unscripted. Kevin, what has happened to your voice? You sound all gunky. Little gunky. Had a little cold this week. I don't think it's allergies. It's not pollen season here yet because I don't have any yellow on Larry in my car out there. So got a little cold. Sorry. I've been visiting. I had a whole bunch of grandkids here a couple weeks ago. Maybe it's left over from them. Who knows? George, how you doing this week?
Miserable. All these years I've been teasing Kevin about his propensity to have kidney stones. And he would tell me, oh, the pain. And I would say, oh, tough it out, be a man. And then I had my first kidney stone. And the world ended. Literally, the world felt like it was ending.
The first is the worst, okay? The first is the worst.
Thank you for that. Now, how many more am I going to have?
I know. I had my first kidney stone in my early 20s, and I ended up in an emergency room going, I'm dying. I don't know what the pain is from. And the nurse knew right away, well, the way you're standing and the pain you're in, it's going to be a kidney stone. What's that? So, but I've been a stoner for almost 40 years now. So welcome to the stoner generation, George. You're old.
Oh, well, I knew that, but now I have proof.
All right, so we're here in Florida again this week. It's 70 degrees. It's beautiful outside. Little breeze coming out of the north. We just had this major cold front come through. And we need to tell our viewers, because you may have forgotten, when it gets too cold in Florida, certain dangers arise. And one of those dangers is reptiles falling out of trees, George. Do you want to tell us about the iguana problem you have?
Yeah. And it's much worse in Miami. When it gets below or close to freezing, iguanas, which are reptiles whose blood
is cold,
cold-blooded creatures, they fall out of trees, and there's a danger of people being hit and injured by falling iguanas from trees. Now, Miami and the East Coast has more of a problem with that because iguanas, we have more alligators around here.
We do, absolutely.
So when iguanas fall out of the trees, the alligators, if they're moving, they'll get them. But it is a danger this time of year, falling iguanas.
The little play alligator we've had here at the Florida Grand for 3 years is now 5 foot long. And he goes we have 2 ponds here at the Florida Grand, and he goes between them. And he gets a good, a crane or a swan once a week. You'll just hear, and you'll see a bird who is standing in the water just disappear. Oh, he got another one. Just like,
any little white dogs disappear? Or you have to be on a leash?
We have leash laws here at the park. And basically, we have a Facebook group. And on there, you'll get warnings when he's walking around. Alfred's out. So it's kind of fun living here in Florida. We have snakes, we have spiders, lots of different things. But the iguanas fall from trees, the pineapples fall from trees, and the coconuts fall from trees. You're more likely to die that way. George, let's move on to the news. We've been reporting for the last 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks, on the demise of Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby. And the fallout is continuing. If you've not know, if you've turned on this program for the first time in 4 weeks, Justin Welby has resigned as Archbishop of Canterbury in response to the Macon report. The Macon report said safeguarding in the Church of England was not conducted properly, and Justin Welby is one of those responsible for the lack of safeguarding. Justin at first said, listen, I will survive this. I don't need to resign. He did end up resigning 1 week after he said that. We're now in the point where people are starting to come out of the closet and respond to his resignation. albeit not a lot of bishops from the Church of England. If I remember correctly, between Church of England and Church York, there's 42 dioceses, so we should probably have had 42 responses at least.
Well, we had 42 responses to the Macon review.
Yes.
But we've only had one response publicly to the Archbishop of Canterbury's role, and that was Bishop Helen Ann Hartley, the only man in the House of Bishops. She's the Bishop of Newcastle in the northern province of York. Right now, Justin Welby is a non-person. Mm-hmm. He is, I don't think they'll go to the extent of beginning to erase him from official pictures of Synod, but it's getting that direction. Welby's last day is January 6th, Epiphany. For the first time in modern history, the Archbishop of Canterbury is not going to do a Christmas broadcast. Whether he's been banned from the BBC or whether he's just been pushed out, we don't know. Stephen Cottrell is assuming the primatial role and for all of England until a new archbishop is selected, and Sarah Mullally will take over his role in the province of Canterbury. So Welby is gone. He's done. He's out of that. He's America, we say, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Well, now what happens when he retires? Where does he move to? Does he get a pension? Or does he have to go find a job?
No, he has a home in France.
Okay.
Remember, his mother left him £2 or £3 million.
That's right. Okay.
So he's independently wealthy. He also gets his pension for service in the Church of England. If he wants to exercise ministry, he'll have to ask the bishop in Europe if he can exercise ministry from his house in France. Okay. Don't worry for Justin Welby financially. As Christians, okay.
I care about the widows and the people who are just fired. So, all right.
Well, as you mentioned, Kevin, the pushback is coming. It's not coming in support of Justin Welby, but it's coming in the form of attacks on Helen Ann Hartley, both overt and quiet, and defense of the system. Peter Selby, the former Bishop of Worcester, who was a bit of a liberal hero. Selby had a very good reputation with his clergy. So he's not one of these nasty people, but he still was very liberal, progressive. Selby had a letter to the editor of the Church Times basically accusing Helen Ann Hartley of disloyalty by being public with her criticisms, of not allowing this system to work it through, and which is extraordinary that Helen Ann Hartley is being made a villain by Peter Selby, the former Bishop of Worcester. Prospect magazine, which is a publication of the Guardian group, had two articles this last week, one by Andrew Brown, who was a left-wing church right commentator, where he essentially said, poor Justin Welby was a bit of a personal failure, but it was the system that failed, not
the machine.
The machine failed. Justin and Joe Bailey Wells and all these people really shouldn't be expected to do the right thing unless it was tattooed on the back of their head, back of their neck, where they knew it. And because there was this ambiguity, well, let's let evil be evil and we'll just stick and do our job. They shouldn't be held responsible. Now, that's exaggeration, but essentially Brown's point was a defense of human incompetence against a bad system. And then a second article came out that was really weird because it said this is all an evangelical plot to get rid of Welby because he was basically going to allow gay marriage to come through. And so all the secretive, filthy rich coalitions of Rush Limbaugh Anglicans.
Is that us? Because I'm not rich. If you could make me rich to fit that would help,
Well, that's the thing. I love these conspiracy theories that tell us how influential and wealthy and important the right wing is, because I'd like to meet these people.
I know.
because I haven't met them yet, and you and I've been doing this for a long time, and we still haven't found these secret money bags.
No,
friends, Kevin and I are open to being bribed.
Absolutely. I would have voted.
Nobody offers.
I would have voted for Kamala for 1 million. I would have gone 1 million. I would have voted for. I can be bribed.
Yeah, and so here it's sort of ridiculous. So these are the sort of second wave of recriminations where it's the system, where it's the shadowy evangelicals, and still no one is standing up for Helen Ann Hartley for doing the right thing.
My problem,
the other bishops.
My problem is nobody else is being held responsible. Okay, we got one purple shirt when probably 6 or 7 should have been shown the door.
Yeah, and the second purple shirt was Jo Bailey Wells. Mm-hmm. She was only stood down because her permission to officiate was in the Diocese of London, and Sarah Mullally had stood down clergy there. And Mullally would have had to explain, well, if you're doing this to Rico Tice, who really is innocent of any wrongdoing, he was a college student when he learned about this, and he told people about it. And you're hammering Rico Tice, and if you're not doing Jo Bailey Wells, who was the Archbishop's secretary, chaplain, when all this came through and did nothing, that's two-tier system. So Mullally did the right thing. But nobody else. Martin Seeley of St. Edmundsbury, Ipswich, and St. Edmundsbury and Ipswich, Stephen Conway of Lincoln, Stephen Cottrell of York, on this particular issue, or Stephen Crofts of, what is it with Stevens in this thing?
I don't know.
Of Stephen Croft in Oxford for the Venomanican scandal. Yeah. Or Glenn Webster, retired Bishop of Beverly. None of these guys have been stood down. And we're seeing politics is continuing. One of the names touted for the next Archbishop of Canterbury is Guli Francis de Coney. She's the one whose mother is English and her father was bishop in Iran, and she left Iran at the revolution in 79. And she's Bishop of Chelmsford. And she's the right age and the right liberality. She, ticks all the right boxes, and she's also a politician. She put out a statement and basically exemplified what I call the two-faced bureaucratic mindset. She wrote, "Like many, I find myself dismayed at the tone and content of the Archbishop's valedictory speech in the House of Lords." Okay, stick the knife in Justin Welby for being a prat. Got it.
That's more of a pin.
However, during this time, I have also been struck once again by the damaging and unhealthy nature of much of the public discourse, which all too easily polarizes and divides. There's no substitute for meeting face to face, meaning keep it in-house, keep it quiet. If you got a complaint, do it privately. Don't go on to the TV Channel 4, Helen Ann Hartley. Uh-huh. Don't get on Twitter or Facebook.
No. Yeah, but this is
we're in a weird situation where Jane Ozanne is more in tune. We're more in tune with Jane Ozanne's and some of the left-wing commentators' views than we are with the middle muddle bishop types.
Well, this is more of a Rowan-esque response. There's two sides to this. Let me show you the gray of the topic, And whatever. Here we are stuck with looking for. We have two problems. One is Justin is the See of Canterbury is empty. The next problem is they're going to find somebody to fill that see. Then I think that's the bigger problem. Could it get any worse than Justin? Hell yeah.
Yes. And so we're seeing the likely candidates displaying their ability to be two-faced. Mm-hmm. Plague on both your houses. Justin, bad boy, bad girl, Helen Ann Hartley.
Now, I would like to have preview of, and I know it's happening. There are discussions right now going around within the Global South and within GAFCON. I don't know what they are, but I think there's some encouragement as to the ball is on our side of the court now. What are we going to do with it?
Well, I've written to Global South, my contacts there. We're waiting for Paul Donison of GAFCON to respond as to the next steps. And the answers I'm getting back is they're waiting too. So the primates, I don't know if they've been able to get together, whether they've been able to have Zoom calls. They certainly haven't had an in-person meeting, not since the last time they got together was for the installation of the new ACNA primate. But this all happened, that was before all this happened.
2 weeks before, yeah.
Yeah, and so they're not scheduled to get together for a while, so we're just waiting. Okay, fellows, what are you going to do now? Phil Ashey came out with some statements essentially saying what we're saying about seize the day.
And let's follow up with that. I would recommend you have on signed paper before the announcement of who the next Archbishop of Canterbury will be, your plan for the future of Anglicanism. Just have it on paper, have it signed by the majority of the Global South and GAFCON. That would help a lot. And that gives you 4 months, you know.
And now's the time. I mean, we've got a new primate in Chile. We've got a new primate in Mozambique, both of whom are GAFCON Global South friendly. We've got a new Bishop of Seoul, South Korea, who's an evangelical, and he's young, so he's going to be primate one day because that's the biggest diocese. And let's start cultivating those guys now and get them on board, because the problem has always been brand new primates show up at the primate meetings the first time they're on that international scene, and they just get wowed by the glamour of Canterbury, and the old hands who say, watch out, watch out, watch out, they don't really take it on in that first meeting. And so you always have, when a third of the guys are new each time, nothing happens because it's, well, we'll trust Justin. Okay, we trusted a big mistake. Next time around.
But Justin can offer you tea with the king. Yeah, and that's a good offering right there. All right, next story. We're going to go to the Middle East. Layan Nazar has been freed by Israel. Interesting background. Archbishop Canterbury and other religious figures demanded that she be released because she was being held as a prisoner of war, obviously, by Israel. And all she is a student, and she should never have ever been arrested, George, ever.
We've cited example after example after example of wait and verify before you do any story out of Israel, the Middle East regarding Anglicanism. Because remember the hospital bombing. It was, of course, the first word out of the box was the bishop in Jerusalem and Justin Welby saying Israel was targeting the hospital. No, it was a Hamas rocket that fell.
Friendly fire, yep.
So, and almost each of these stories of outrage we get out of the Middle East, you need to have additional context. Well, Layan Nazir, 23-year-old student, Anglican Episcopalian, was arrested and put in administrative detention back in March. And Justin Welby and the Archbishop in Jerusalem got on to Justin Welby. Justin Welby made a big stink about it. The Episcopal Church made a big stink about it. And she was released about 10 days ago by the Israelis. And the response has been, isn't Israel terrible for putting people in administrative detention? This poor 23-year-old college student who's an Episcopalian just gets swept up. What they forget to mention sometime is that she was a member of the student wing for the People's Liberation Front for Palestine, PLFP. And this is a terrorist organization, the PLFP, as stated by the U.S. State Department, by the European Union, by the British. This is an activist in the student wing of a terror organization. And in Israel, post-October 7th, you keep a close watch on all the terrorists and their fellow travelers. Now, I'm not defending or saying this was right. I don't know what evidence they had or anything, but when you omit in the story from Lambeth Palace or 815 that the 23-year-old college girl was also a member of this PLF, terrorist organization, student wing, you're not telling the whole story. Nope. And it needs to be given some balance and context. Should she be jailed? I don't know. But I would like to have known when I saw these things coming out of Lambeth Palace that they at least looked into who this person was.
Yeah. George, little Patty Hearst was a victim until she wasn't. And so, yeah, you got to know the full context and information of the stories. And we see this all the time. It's just a knee-jerk reaction to everything you see. And in war, and in the power of the confusion of war, you have to be really sure of your stories. And there's always more to the story. Ask Paul Harvey. Let's go on here and hit our next story. What do you got written down here, George?
Mike Pavlacci is back.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, Diocese of St. Albans responds to the scolding review of Michael Pavlacci. Now, truth be told, until he made the news as a maker of victims, I never heard of him before. And so,
right.
Yeah, so I'm reporting this with not knowing the guy or knowing of his ministry. But basically, the Diocese of St. Albans says, hey, we had no concerns. There was no reason to consider Mike Pavlacci a maker of victims until we got a formal complaint.
Yeah, the scolding review was put together by a lawyer, Fiona Scolding, on behalf of the Diocese of St. Albans. Lovely name for a scolding.
No, she would make the perfect librarian.
Well, she put together a review about how did this take place, and St. Albans issued its response to her report, and conceding almost all the facts and everything, but taking issue with some of the opinions made therein. And some of the things that they came up with was that we really had no concerns about Pavlacci until we got the complaint against him in 2022. And Pavlacci been doing these perverted things for years, naked wrestling with young men sort of stuff, or massages and just creepy stuff.
Yep.
Okay, and spiritual abuse. You spiritually abusing people. But
God
they didn't
me.
get any complaint until the complaint they acted on. And they also said that, the problem with Soul Survivor was half in, half out of the Church of England. Yes, Pavlacci was a Church of England priest, but only in 2012. He'd been running it for years beforehand. And it was a para-church organization that really did not fall within the oversight of the Church of England directly. We would ask questions and we'd get reports, but we weren't there exercising day-to-day control of the operation. So we really had no knowledge of things going off the rails. And one of the things they said when we did have our visits, yearly visits, sometimes Pavlacci would say, wouldn't show up to them, and he'd have other people take care of the business there. And they couldn't sort of compel this. And then the final thing they said was that Pavlacci did not go through the normal ordination process. He was not properly vetted. He didn't go to a bishop's advisory committee. Because he already had a successful ministry, he was given what they called a bespoke, which is usually confined to tailors and shoemakers. He was given a bespoke ordination process where he was given pro forma psychiatric and psychological reviews, but he didn't go through any of the, commissions. He didn't have any of the long-term evaluations. He didn't do a curacy. He just went straight. He continued his ministry of Soul Survivor, having been kicked upstairs to be a priest. And the question is, if he had gone through the administrative bureaucratic process, would this have been caught?
Not in the Church of England, no. Clearly, evidence shows this would not have been caught, George. You go back to the first story. You know, so the machine is unable to catch its perpetrators, and
So-
they blame the machine. And the machine did not allow Mike to fully participate, Michael, because they wanted to adopt his ministry and use the success and coattails of his ministry as their own. Oops. Yeah. So that didn't work out
And
too well.
I think, and there's that temptation to not look too closely at some things when you don't want to be surprised by the things that you might find. Kevin, you and I have adult daughters. Do we want to know everything?
Oh, but no,
Or
not,
just-
but now that there are, between the ages of graduation of college or graduation of high school and when we get married, but now that they're married and, having families, they tell me everything. Oh, the dog puked all over the rug today. Don't need to know that. Don't need that. So, whatever. All right, next story. One of the dioceses that we're talking about in the Diocese of the UK is, in the province of the UK, is the Diocese of Rochester. They had a synod where they voted no confidence in the Archbishop's Council. What is the Archbishop's Council?
The Archbishop's Council is akin to the Executive Council in the Episcopal Church.
Standing committee? Yeah.
I forget what it's called, the ACNA. It'll come to me after the story.
Of course.
A standing committee.
Yeah.
That sort of ongoing interim body between meetings of General Synod that sort of runs the church in the absence of synod. It's the organization at Church House, led by Andrew Nye. It should be Stephen Nye, just because of all the Stephens we had today.
Yes.
The Archbishop's Council has made a mess of the safeguarding process. Witness the whole Macon review and the Welby controversy. And the Diocese of Rochester had a motion at its synod voicing no confidence in the Archbishop's Council on the safeguarding issue. And the debate expanded from there, basically saying we have no confidence in general to the Archbishop's Council. However, the vote and the motion were on one specific area in safeguarding. So defenders of the Archbishop's Council are saying, well, they didn't say they hated all of it, just one aspect of it. But the tone and temper, Martin Seeley, who's a member of General Synod, prominent blogger, Twitter commentator on the Church of England, attended, and it's quite clear that they were talking overall about the Archbishop's Council. So it was an overwhelming majority, like a 10-1 margin, condemning the Archbishop's Council. And Bishop Jonathan Gibbs, who is within the Church of England bishops, he's on the side of the angels. He's an opponent to LLF, for instance. He endorsed it. So we've got, and there's now that the Rochester is going to bring to the next meeting of General Synod a similar motion of no confidence in the Archbishop's Council. Now, this may be too little too late, but this is how the system in England works, of trying to try to correct the course of the machine.
Yes.
However, the Archbishop's Council can block any motions from coming forward to Synod. It can be ruled out of order. It can be kicked into it can be kicked in committee. So if the Archbishop Council wants to fight back, they have every tool available to block this. But like the election of Donald Trump in the United States, there is a populist movement in the Church of England. Now, please don't hear me to say that all those who don't like the Archbishop Council are MAGA Republicans. No, I'm not saying that. But the same spirit that is basically saying enough is enough with business as usual in American politics is active in the Church of England's politics, where we're seeing the phenomena of left and right coming together against the machine. Left and right do not agree on almost anything. even the person of Jesus sometimes. But they do agree that the Archbishop's Council has made a hash of things.
Yes.
So we'll see how this unfolds.
All right, got some more news. It seems we're doing all UK stories today. I assure you we'll get to some tech news and some YouTube news further down the list here. Let's see, you got a whole bunch of names here. Andrew Robathan, Baron Robathan, the former...
Baron Robathan.
Baron.
Lord Robathan.
Yes.
He's a baron.
Oh, good. Thank you. The former minister in the state of Northern Ireland savages the Church of England in Parliament. I saw the video in remarks directed to Stephen Cottrell. The church that is dying on its feet, it's becoming more and more irrelevant. I've said this. He's quoting Kevin. Congregations are dwindling. He's quoting George. And we don't know yet, frankly. The church is on a certain extended fiddling while it burns. Yes, it is.
Lord Robathan was a former Conservative MP who was a cabinet minister for David Cameron. Mm-hmm. He was kicked upstairs to the House of Lords about 10 years ago. Stephen Cottrell was offering a motion to take note on social cohesion, sort of how can we all get along sort of stuff. And Robathan stood up and basically said, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about what a crappy job you are doing leading the Church of England, you and Justin Welby. And then he proceeded to tear into the leadership of the Church of England. He attacked their response to COVID, shutting the churches. He attacked their funding priorities, spending £100 million on slavery reparations when his church, his parish that he attends, one priest has to cover 7 benefices in rural Leicestershire, I think it is. What the bureaucracy, his wife was a Sunday school youth leader in the parish, and she had to undergo all these bureaucratic training, and the only 2 children in the youth group were their 2 children. And people are hesitant to get involved in the leadership of a parish because of the overwhelming bureaucratic mess. And this rise that we reported last week in the employment of bureaucrats in the church offices, diocesan offices, whose sole job is to make work for rectors and vicars. So that basically a rector's job is now to fill out paperwork from the head office. This bureaucracy is killing the church. And it comes down to poor leadership. And his conclusion was, and I'll read the quote to you, let the Church of England look after its own with parish priests and not criticize all those such as myself who hold conservative views. I sat through the debates on Rwanda and so on, where I was told basically I was being unchristian, unquote, for holding political views that did not align with the Archbishop of Canterbury. So Robathan, and this was our most popular, most viewed article of the week. Yeah. And I don't think it was covered in the secular press at all, and not in the English church press. The only place you could see it was either if you went directly to parliamentary debates or looked at it Anglican Ink. Robathan is basically saying the Church of England should stand for the English. It should fight for the English. It should basically take a stand against unfettered immigration. It could take a stand on the Islamification of British society. Now, in the past, these sort of things would be considered pseudo-Tommy Robinson right-wing extremists' talk. And here's a middle-of-the-road conservative former minister in the House of Lords giving voice to the populist view that you see in the parishes of the Church of England, that the leadership is letting us down. It's crushing us rather than helping expand the gospel. Mm-hmm. So I can perfectly understand why this was the most popular piece, because it was the clearest, jargon-free denunciation of the Church of England I've seen in a long time. The church is broken. Absolutely. All right, let's move on. Yeah. Oh, did we mention the Cottrell's response after being savaged? He said, he stood up and said, well, we need to talk. Let's talk in private. Face to face. Where have we heard that before? Let's talk face to face. Yeah. To face. All right.
Here we go. This is our big story of the week. The Episcopal Church is out of oil.
That's right. They're selling their Texaco and Chevron and Exxon and all their shares. They're getting out of the oil business.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're not buying Tesla stock. They're not going into the Episcopal Church's Executive Council has directed its bankers to divest itself of polluting stocks. So this is an example of virtue signaling. It's not driven by economic concerns. It's driven by we need to be seen. So up to this point, I don't think they owned gambling stocks or gun stocks.
Okay.
So they don't have any Harrah's Casino stock or Remington Arms stocks. I don't know if those are even companies anymore.
Glock stock. Smith & Wesson
Glock stock. But they've added to the bad boy list. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they can own Seagram's alcohol stocks. Whatever it is, they're getting religion in their stock picking. Now, this does not apply to the church pension fund. Thank God.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, the biggest money-making thing of the 90s and 80s, 90s, and 2000s is the pension fund. They made a lot of money.
Yep, it's because they are able, because they're independent, to ignore the virtue signalers whose retirements are not at all affected by crazy schemes. So the Episcopal Church, we talk about it's going to do a new thing. Well, not yet. It's Kevin and I joke about saying this being a major story. It is so entirely in tune with the craziness of the leadership of the Episcopal Church that it's almost a non-story.
I mean, it's a non-story because of who's doing it. It's not a non-story because we are called to be good stewards of our money and the good stewards of our church money. As some of you know, I trade a lot. I own a lot of Tesla stock, a lot of NVIDIA stock. I own Coin, which is an EFT in crypto. And I've done very well since Trump was elected president. Holy cow.
I own no stocks, and I'm trusting in the wisdom of the managers of my pension fund. Because I don't have any excess income to invest. Because I have children, I have daughters, and that is my income. Maybe I'm hoping that they'll take care of me when I'm an old man.
I don't know. So, in as such, I'm being a good steward by keeping the Tesla and the NVIDIA and the crypto. But it's a strange. Okay, I own others. I own GE. I own Boeing. I own lots of different varieties of companies. But I'm trying to be good stewards with my retirement and, kind of a little bit of Kallsen legacy that we can donate to our church when we pass on. But whoa, George,
Well, it is the Episcopal, it is the Executive Council's right to say what they want to and don't want to invest in.
That's fine.
My only thing is that investments decisions should be economically driven, not necessarily politically driven or virtue signaling driven. So there you go.
Well, I'm sure they give Planned Parenthood enough money to make up for any evils they would invest in any other places. Okay, George, if you guys have not been paying attention in the last 7 days, quietly behind the scenes, Syria has fallen. The depot, horrible totalitarian Assad has finally left and fled the country. This largely happened because Russia was no longer able to support the Assad Syria regime, and he had no way to defend against his rebels that came into the country and slowly came down from the north, and Damascus is now in their control. Israel this week said, you don't have a government of any sort. We're going to go and make sure that you don't have weapons of any sort that could fall into nasty hands, and took out 90% of their military infrastructure. The Navy's gone, the Army's gone, the armory depots are gone, the missile silos are gone. So Syria is an empty shell of people who have no form of government right now. Chaos. Let's talk about that, George.
It's a wonderful situation right now because we have one group backed by the CIA that's overthrown Assad.
Yeah.
Then we have another group backed by the U.S. Pentagon in the east supporting the Kurds, and those two people are fighting. So the United States is backing both sides under the Biden administration in Syria, who have survived up to this point. The big concern is that we raise here is the fate of the country's Christians. Syria has historically, at the beginning of the 20th century, Syria was 30% Christian.
Yeah. Lebanon
was majority Christian.
Damascus,
Aleppo were historic Christian cities. That not at the stage now 90% of the Christians have left Syria or have left Damascus and Aleppo because these rebels are ISIS and Al-Qaeda backed. ISIS backed, another group is Al-Qaeda backed. And even though they're talking a good game right now, their experience with these people is that they will be, it's the Borg, it's the Muslim Borg. If you're not a Star Trek fan, you won't know what I'm talking about. But assimilate or die. And so Europe has seen a tremendous flood of Syrian refugees. And now they're going to see another flood of Christian refugees as things sort of settle down. It's a bad situation. There is an Anglican parish in Damascus, which in the diocese of Jerusalem, which basically is, I don't want to say defunct, but the people have all left because they don't want to get killed.
Well, in reference to Star Trek, this is the Kobayashi Maru. It's a non-winnable situation. Trump has said we're not going to go in there. Biden has already sent troops in. Now, I need to be upfront with you, having a little knowledge of warfare. We have a lot of special forces there already, but they're not going to be reported in any reporting going back and forth. We probably have 1,500 special forces there. We have 900 official troops that we recognize there. And then we have military assets around Syria. If Biden wanted to do something, he could build up a force to do something. But I think he's on his way out. I don't think he's going to do very much. Trump says, hands off. We're gonna let the Middle East be the Middle East. Well, if I'm Israel, like I said, wait a minute. I don't think you want to let a power vacuum exist again. Look what happened to Iraq, and this is exactly what happened to Iraq. Christians were safe in Iraq under Saddam Hussein. All three.
They weren't happy, but they were safe.
They were safe. Nobody got to pick on the Christians because Saddam would kill you if you picked on the other. He kept the peace, being a despot. Same with Assad. He kept the peace because you start fighting, he's going to kill you. You're going to end up in his famous prison. And now we have a power vacuum just north of Israel.
Now, our saying this does not defend Assad. It doesn't defend Saddam Hussein.
No.
But when you kick an ant's nest, you shouldn't be surprised when the ants all run out and attack you and attack each other. Israel has been very clever. As you mentioned, it's destroyed the military capacity of whoever takes power in Syria. Navy's gone, Air Force is gone, Army's gone, munitions are all gone. And they've moved and taken now the rest of the Golan Heights. So Mount Hebron is now in Israel for the first time since, 70 AD.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Netanyahu says, it's going to stay in Israel too. We're not going to cede any heights back to Syria that new government could start shelling us again. Mm-hmm. The Kurds in the east, where our 900 official troops are on the ground, are saying, okay, we're now going to form our own country, Kurdistan. Now, the rest of Kurdistan is in what we call Iraq and Turkey. And so Iraq and Turkey are going to fight that, prevent an independent Kurdistan, because if the Kurds are their own country in this place, the rest of the Kurds will want it. So we're going to see a NATO ally and a former military client, Iraq, go to war with our current military thing. The Kurds are the prisoners that were taken when ISIS was defeated are being guarded by the Kurds for the United States. The Kurds are saying we've got to send our troops up to the front because the Turks are advancing and the Iraqis are fighting us. And so we need help to guard ISIS. And that means the United States sends more people, or we get the Russians or the Israelis or
Russia
somebody
can't do
else.
anything. Russia got no money, no people. However, the biggest variable in all of this is Iran. Iran is completely broke right now. Iran talked the Biden administration into letting them have 10 billion of their assets back that were frozen. And you know, they're like, give us something before Trump comes in because we ain't got nothing. And so Biden 2 weeks ago said, yeah, you can. We will unfreeze 10 billion of your assets. That gives Iran power that they didn't need to have at this time. This is a bad time to give them that power. So, you know, we'll see.
But at the end of the day, the Christians of Iraq, Kurdistan, Syria, Lebanon are all going to be the loser in this, because I hate to say this, but Russia saw itself as a protector of these minorities. Mm-hmm. And it didn't support Saddam. It didn't support Assad out of the goodness of its heart, but out of its desire to have warm water ports on the coast and to protect Orthodox Christians. The old imperial Russian policy was taken up by Putin. Well, New World, we have no clue what's going to happen next.
No. All right, next story. A Nigerian archbishop has been kidnapped, or at least he's gone missing. We assumed he's been kidnapped. What's the story, George?
Godwin Akpala, former archbishop of the Niger province, which is in southeastern Nigeria, the Delta State. Mm-hmm. He was on his way. He and his driver were on their way to a clergy funeral on Saturday, and he didn't show up. And they retraced his steps, and he's disappeared. Now, this part of Nigeria is famous for bandits kidnapping foreign oil workers, wealthy people. No demands have been made public yet. So the Church of Nigeria may have gotten a ransom note, and we'll know nothing until he's free.
The deal's been done, yeah.
Yeah, because in the past, bishops have been kidnapped, and the Church of Nigeria pays for their release. Mm-hmm. So because it's so far south.
It's not the Boko Haram. Yeah.
It's not Boko Haram. It's not the religious wars that are in the central middle belt and northern Nigeria. This is pure gangsterism. And it speaks to the breakdown of law and order all across Nigeria. I mean, in the north, we have the persecution of Christians, the Fulani tribesmen murdering Christian farmers. In the south, we have banditry and gangsterism. Nigeria is in a really bad spot as a society. And it's a tough place right now.
On to our next story. George, you know what I'm going to have for supper tonight?
You going to Texas Roadhouse? Or?
No, I'm going to get Meat Lover's Pizza. There's a nice little pizza joint over here in Bushnell called This Guy's Pizza. And they offer pretty much the closest you're going to get to Connecticut, New York pizza right here. It's awesome. They also have the best Philly cheesesteak there, too. But I'm not going to get that. I'm going to get the Meat Lover's Pizza. I like meat. I do. And as a Christian, I'm allowed to partake of meat. I'm not restricted to any diet. Therefore, I am certainly glad I don't live in Assam. Hindu Christians classes worsen. I can't even talk right now. I'm so sick. Hindu Christian clashes worsen in Assam because of a ban on meat.
the last year, there have been communal fights between Christians and militant Hindus in Assam, which is an eastern Indian state, with that part of India on the other side of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is sort of in the middle there. The history of that area is that the people in the plains were Hindus and Muslims, and the tribal border regions, the mountain people, were Christianized by missionaries in the 19th and 20th century. So there's a sizable Christian presence in Assam, unlike the rest of India. And the rise of militant Hinduism, the BJP and other parties like that, has led to clashes, and over 100 people have died so far in 2024 in these communal fights between Christians and Hindus.
That's so crazy. Militant Hinduism.
Hindus, yeah. Well, the government in Assam just passed a law banning public consumption of beef, because the cow is sacred, and the you know the expression, Batman, holy cow.
Yeah.
Well, the Christians, that's their primary source of protein. They're cattle farmers, they're ranchers, they eat cows, and now they're basically being told that they cannot sell the meat that they slaughter from cows, and so many of the wealthier ones are going to face economic ruin because their livelihood's been destroyed, and the Christians who live in towns who buy meat from the butcher are basically going to be told you can only eat now chicken or goat or
fish.
And the thing is that this is the sort of thing that sets people off. Okay, if the government shut down your pizza parlor, Kevin, would you take to the streets and storm the Capitol in Washington, D.C.?
There would be. I will not discuss the height of violence I'm willing to go for my meat lover's pizza, but there's a possibility I would make the papers.
We're being silly, of course, but this is the reality of the Christian life in non-Christian countries. Mm-hmm. It's not like this all throughout India. My daughter right now is in Calcutta, having the time of her life, being treated like a princess by her friends she's visiting. And if she wants to get a steak, she can get a steak. She probably wouldn't want to because her friends are paying for everything. But in much of India, there's a prejudice against Christians, against Muslims in other parts. Now, the situation in Assam is made worse because in Bangladesh, there was a revolution, and the Hindus and Christians in Bangladesh are being actively persecuted by the Muslims. It's causing many Hindus to flee across the border into Assam and into India proper, into Bihar state. And this is adding a new religious wrinkle to the communal violence. So in Assam, it was Christians versus Hindus. Now it's Christians versus Hindus versus Muslims. You got a three-way fight going on. It's, I don't want to say an insolvable, but it's almost like, it used to be with the Northern Ireland problem. The troubles will always be there because Catholics and Protestants are not going to get along. Hindus and Muslims and Christians will not get along in India.
Well, this also has a climate story to it, too. Whose side do you think Bill Gates is going to take?
Oh, yeah. He's going to take the Hindus because, cow farts are causing global warming.
Yeah, that's right. This is a bigger story than we ever knew. Thanks, Bill Gates, for that. All right, we got how much time we got here left on the episode? We should get going here. We got about 5 minutes, so we'll cover two stories. We have a new archdeacon. Oh, no, sorry. New flying bishop. George, who is he?
Well, good news out of England. After a lot of bad news earlier in the program, Luke Irvine Capel is the current archdeacon of Chichester. He's been named the new Bishop of Rochester. Richborough. Richborough, which is one of the flying bishops. He'll be based in the Diocese of Portsmouth. And everything we've seen from our viewers who comment on these things and our friends who send us these stories saying, great choice, wonderful. There are Anglo-Catholics and there are Anglo-Catholics. There's some Anglo-Catholics who are sort of the smells and bells and a little loose on some of the moral issues. And then there's some really firm, powerful, dynamic Anglo-Catholics. And I'm told, I've never met the fellow, that Irvine Capel is one of the firm, dynamic Anglo-Catholics, not a limp-wristed one.
On to the final story. I'm going to tell you guys a secret. Social media has destroyed the Western culture completely. Having access to all the information you need at the end of your fingertips has destroyed us. Being able to share our stories, being able to see other people's stories, and have what we call a desire to envy.
Voyeur?
Envy. Being envy of somebody else's success has destroyed us. And so George and I exist in this destroyed area with a ministry called Anglican Unscripted, where we bring you news. There's other places here where you can make money. We don't make much money on YouTube. We make just enough to pay the bills. But if you become a social influencer, you can make a lot of money. There's a Mr. Beast or something like that who makes $1 million a week producing videos on YouTube. To achieve that success from our little 10,000 subscriber area to get to the 50 million subscribers he has, I would have to do something amazing, something that's never been done before, because I need to be successful enough that somebody wants to click on Kevin's link to see what Kevin did. And we've seen some really disgusting things happen over the years. There was a father who would keep filming his family, and he was growing his audience for his show. And Daddy one day decided, I'm going to give the kids diarrhea pills, or whatever that's called, where laxatives. And we'll make a funny gag out of that. Well, he had his kids taken away, but I think the family got some counseling, they're back together yet. But the desire to get more viewers has made everybody go crazy if they're an influencer. How do I grow my audience? I'm not worried about how to grow the Anglican audience of Anglican Unscripted. It will max out at some point. And we're not here to make money. I don't need the fame, this infamy. There's a young lady named Lily Phillips who came up with an idea of how to add to her channel's subscriptions. She decided that as a YouTuber, she could sleep with 100 men. And that would bring her the fame she needed and increase the viewership on her channel and make her more money and add to her lifetime dream of being famous. If you've seen the videos of her after this stunt she pulled, you're like, holy crap, where did her soul go? She's gone. Her eyes are blank. She's in tears. She learned a very valuable lesson, George, but let's talk about this in the contents that, thank God, Australia has banned social media for kids 16 and under. Maybe we should do that here in America. Let's talk about Lily.
Lily Phillips had a OnlyFans account, which is not YouTube.
No.
Essentially, it's YouTube pornography.
I don't follow these things that closely.
On YouTube, you can see her advertisements, for this, where she looks all seductive and quite prettily made up and talking about it coming. And then you can see reports afterwards where she talks about her experience. And as you say, Kevin, this is a woman who has been destroyed. She had filmed her having sex with 100 different men over the course of a day, and broadcast this on OnlyFans. And frankly, I've not seen OnlyFans. I wouldn't look at it.
I don't.
But looking at her afterwards, I see two options for her. One is she puts a gun in her mouth and kills herself, or two, she turns her life over to Jesus Christ. She is that destroyed that we all need Jesus, but here is somebody who, if she doesn't find Jesus, will die. Drug overdose, gun in her mouth, whatever it is. The thing is, there were 100 men happily willing to participate in this debauchery.
And they don't regret it.
In addition,
they do not regret it.
In addition, see, I believe that sex is a gift from God. It's one of our great blessings. And one of the fallings and the sins of mankind is that we abuse this blessing by taking out of the context and out of the circumstances in which it was intended for it within the context of marriage, for mutual aid and comfort, and for the procreation of children. And when we take it out to make it a recreational thing or a thing to alleviate boredom or stress, I had a friend of mine when we were out of college. He was in medical school, and he was a devout Christian. He's actually Greek Orthodox, very devout fellow. And he was shared with me that one of the counselors at his medical school said, well, engage in sex if you're feeling stressed. That'll help you, deal with the pressure of being in medical school. That's 25, 30 years ago. People are saying this, and we've now reached the point where for casual entertainment, we have Lily Phillips entertaining us with her being having sex with 100 different men.
Mm-hmm.
It's the victory of Satan and debauchery. And if there's any reason that I can point, I recently taught the confirmation class, which of course is made up of 12 and 13-year-old boys and girls.
Oh boy.
And I said, and we talked about sex, and I said, do not have sex until you're married. Here's why God gave us sex. And also I had to say, well, if you fall short, remember that you can always come back to God and you can be made new. And I told him about St. Mary of Egypt. St. Mary of Egypt
sure. Yeah.
Is a saint who was essentially a nymphomaniac. She enjoyed sex, pursued sex. And she actually went on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem with the intention of seducing pilgrims to debauch them. And she had a conversion experience, and she moved out into the desert and became a wonderful saint of God and is honored by the church today. So, if St. Mary of Egypt can turn her around life and be a saint, if you're 13 now and make a mistake when you're 17 or 18, you too can turn around. But our culture is not telling children this anymore. They're telling them that sex is a fulfillment of something.
Well, no, it's not fulfillment.
It isn't.
It's not a fulfillment. That's the Christian teaching. They're teaching sex is empowering. Mm-hmm. Satan wants you to believe that sex is empowering. The most intimate thing my wife and I can do together is make love, have sex. That's in her mind and in my mind, that's the most intimate thing the two of us can do together. Lordy, oh Lordy, we do it a lot. But in as such, culture doesn't teach that. Culture says sex empowers you. You as a woman, you can control your organs, and when sex makes you a god. Now, what this poor lady Lily didn't know going in is she wasn't having sex with 100 people who loved her. She was having sex with 100 people who were likely addicted to porn, who had no idea about how to make love to a woman other than to give sexual gratifications to themselves. And that's why you see the soulless face walking out of, what happened? I thought I would be empowered. I thought I'd be more happy. I thought I'd be more popular. No, you're infamous now. And your best choice here is to get on your knees and repent and become one again with God. And I hate to say it that way, you were not empowered. You were completely disempowered. And that's why your soul is lost right now. And I don't mean to lecture you guys, but I believe social media is the early destruction of Western culture, and I'm so proud of Australia for deciding to ban their kids from it. It's a hellhole of envy, And if your money is to make, if your income is to make money trying to get people to click on your channel, you'll do almost anything, and she did. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 800 and... What number, Kevin?
94.
894. of Anglican Unscripted.